This tutorial is my interpretation of the portrait of Dorian Gray, which, if you're unfamiliar with the story, was originally written in 1890 by Oscar Wilde about a young aristocrat who has his portrait painted and, realizing that his beauty is going to fade with time, makes a deal with the devil that his portrait will fade in age instead of him. After taking the time to do my hair and beautify myself to get portrait ready, the first step in this tutorial is then to remove some of that makeup. I took off my lipstick and the NYX foundation in preparation for making myself into the decrepit Dorian Gray. I left the eye makeup as it was because I knew I would basically just be darkening up the eye sockets to make them look more sunken, and removing the eye makeup then was unnecessary. Now that your foundation is removed, I took a kabuki brush and I put on a base layer of a yellow tone corrector. This kind of gives your skin an aged, almost jaundicey look, which is good for what we're doing here. Now that I have my face a nice slightly yellow color, I took a light brown eyebrow powder and I started to sink in my eyes. I basically followed where the eye sockets were, so underneath my eyelids, the tops of my eyelids, and then I took a slightly darker brown powder to the eye sockets by the bridge of the nose to really make it look sunken as you're aging yourself. Now, since Dorian Gray's portrait didn't just age, it also sort of decayed with all of the sins that he committed, I decided to make myself look kind of sunken and hollow everywhere. So I took that same dark brown and the light brown from the brow powder and I started to sink in my cheeks. Don't worry about if it's not blended in perfectly right here, because I went over it again with the yellow tone corrector and blended it out so it was much more smooth of a transition. Now, whatever color you're going to use for your shadowing and your shading in this, become friends with it, get used to it. You are going to use it a lot throughout this video. I also added a little bit of the brown to the corners of my nostrils where they dip in and meet my kind of cheeks there, and it gives it more of a shadowy, aged look. I put a small tiny line down the sides of the bridge of my nose. Again, it just adds shadowing. And then once I was done with the nostrils and the cheeks, I added some shadows to the tendons in my neck. Again, you're just kind of going for an aged hollow look. I'll also mention that once I've added some of the light and dark brown for the shadowing, I always go over it with that yellow tone corrector and blend it out. It just makes it look like a less obvious makeup line and more of an actual shadow. In this next step, I decided to define the wrinkles in my forehead and on the bridge of my nose, and then I realized that it was quite difficult for me to see my wrinkles, and I got annoyed by that, and I realized I probably shouldn't have been, because it's a good thing. However, if you are like me and you can't really see your wrinkles, just kind of make it up where they are, and then again, with the blending from the yellow tone corrector, smooths it out, makes it look more natural. Once again, grab your friendly shaders, and I added just a little bit of color and depth to the outsides, the corners of my mouth. It just kind of makes it look like it's sinking into your face a little bit. Again, going for old. Then I took out the clip-in hair extensions that I had used. Thankfully, I have thin, fine hair, so it helped in giving it that aging, thinning, getting older look that I was going for. I did this in stages because I was kind of in my head picturing like a 10-year, and then like every 10 years or so how the picture would age and decay. In this step, I put a scar on my cheek. I took a pink lip liner and I drew out where I wanted it first. Then I went over it with a brown eyeliner, and then I blended over it with the yellow to make it less obvious, and then I just went over it with a scarring liquid. Throughout the process of this, I probably put 5 or 6 layers on there. It depends on how deep you want your scar to look. I wanted mine to be very defined and obvious, so I added a few more layers. So for each step, as I said, you are going to add more shading. I used mainly the dark browns in this one and not so much light browns, because we are getting more sunken and more hollow and more old looking and decrepit as the video goes on. So again, shade, 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 and then blend, blend, blend. Make sure you are shading your eyes and your cheeks and your neck. Anywhere that you had the shading previously, you are now making it darker. At this point, I decided to shadow underneath my chin and also in the hollow of my throat. I didn't really do too much of the light brown, I did more of the dark brown, and I actually added a little bit of black eyeshadow just to sink them in and give them a darker, more noticeable effect. And again, once you are done adding in your browns and your blacks, you are going to blend it in with your yellow tone corrector. At this point, I decided that Dorian may have gotten into a fight and he got scratched in the face, so I'm doing another scar down my lips, same process as the one on the cheek. I drew in where I wanted it with a red lip liner pencil, then went over it with the brown eyeliner pencil, and then with the scarring liquid. Tingled a little bit, felt a little weird when the lips pinched because of the scar liquid, but overall worked out pretty cool. And you guessed it, for the next step, more shadowing. This time though, I went in with black eyeshadow around my eyes and in the cheeks. We're getting more decrepit as the years go, so you're getting darker with your shadows. Since the rest of me was aging, I decided I should add some white and gray to my hair. I'm using a water-based paint in here. I started off with a foundation brush, but it was making the streaks too fat and they didn't look realistic. So I ditched the foundation brush. I just dumped some water in my paint cakes, and then I rubbed my fingers in there, rubbed my hands together to kind of blend the white and the gray together, and I just started streaking it through my hair with my fingers. Also, with the water-based paints, I had mixed together some conditioner and baby oil, and I was streaking that through my hair also to give it a stringy, greasy, old, gross look, and it felt as gross as it looked. So I was using a mold that I have, and I was making some gelatin prosthetics, and it turns out that the empty space in between my molds actually accidentally turned out to be a perfect wound shape. So I decided to use it for this look. I covered the back in some liquid latex and stuck it on my lower cheek, upper neck area, and then added some more liquid latex around the edges to hold it down and seal it in place. So while the latex was drying around my wound, I decided to pull off my fake lashes and add in a zombie dead contact because, I figured Dorian may be blind in one eye at this point. Also, I took out the first 20 minutes of me attempting to put in this contact because I am absolutely horrible at them. This is the final shot and the one that actually was successful. It made sense that if my hair had gray and white streaks in it, my eyebrows should too, so using a small eyeshadow brush and the water-based cake paints, I added a little white and gray streaks to my eyebrows. And since it's been a while, and I'm sure you've missed it, you are going to shadow some more and then blend some more. The latex was dry around my wound, so I decided to add that diseased, festery look to it. I took a very, very small eyeshadow brush. It could also be used as an eyeliner brush, and I used a black cream makeup in the center and some of the crevices around the wound just to give it that dark three-dimensional look. And then on the outsides of the blacks, I added a dark purple color and we kind of blended it in with the black. Once I had those two in there how I liked them, I took a blood red color and covered the majority of the wound with that. Once I had the red, the purple, and the black in there how I wanted it, I actually took a bruise color wheel and I used the yellow and the olive green and I kind of blended those into the edges a little bit. And then I took the brown brow shadows and I blended those into the yellows and the reds and the greens. And so I kind of had this diseased, pussy, festering wound on my neck, which is exactly what I was going for. So taking a very small eyeliner brush and my dark brown brow powder, I deepened the wrinkles in my forehead. At this point, I also took a fluffier eyeshadow brush and some black eyeshadow, and I darkened the hollows around my eyes, my cheeks, my nostrils, my throat, and my neck. Again, with the shadowing, once you're done with that, take the kabuki brush and the yellow tone corrector and you blend it all in so it looks more natural. I wanted to define my scars a little bit more, so I added a couple more layers of the scar liquid over both of them. By this point, I imagined Dorian had been in at least a couple more fights. Maybe someone had tried to kill him by slitting his throat, so I gave myself a scar across the neck, using the exact same process that I used for the other two. The red lip liner, followed by the brown eyeliner pencil, blended in with your yellow tone corrector, and then covered with the scarring liquid. Since I'm getting toward the end of my tutorial, I wanted to kind of give the effect of when a portrait or a painting ages and the paint peels. I wanted the skin to kind of look like it was doing the same thing. So I layered some liquid latex in a few spots. You can pick wherever you want. I did the cheek, the forehead, and my neck. While that was drying, I once again went in with my dark colors and I shaded and blended. When my latex was dry, I took a translucent powder and I just did a light coating of the powder over that. What that does is it takes the shine off the latex so it looks more realistic, and then you can add your colors to it and they blend a lot better. Once you've got your latex powdered and a base coat on there, I took a pair of tweezers and very carefully, so I only picked at the latex and not actually at my face. You want to pick so there's a little tiny hole in the latex. Once you have that, just take your finger and roll the latex back. Gives it that peeled paint look. Now that the latex is peeled back from where your wounds are going to be, I decided to add in my colors. I wanted to make it a little more three-dimensional, so I did the outside edges with the black cream paint. Then the same with the neck wound, I took the purple and blended it into that, and then took the blood red, filled in the holes, and blended it all together so there wasn't an obvious outline. So the final step I did for the wounds was to add some fake blood. I just took an eyeshadow brush and dipped it in there and then added it to the wound. So I wanted it to kind of run down and look like they were fresh, but then the one on my forehead started running too much. So I just took a Q-tip and caught it before it actually ran into my eye. I just stopped it at the eyebrow. And then once I was done with the forehead wound, I just added some blood to my cheek and neck, let them run down a little bit. The very final thing I did for this look was to add some age spots or liver spots. I did a few on my forehead, a couple on my cheeks. I think I even threw one on my nose, which ended up kind of looking like a wart later on. Once the liver spots were done, I just did some final shadowing touch up, and of course after the shadowing, a little bit of blending. And then the look was complete. Thank you for watching my Dorian Gray tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more of my upcoming looks. I hope you enjoyed this. Have a wonderful day. NYX Cosmetics for when you want to look your very best.